Know how to find the roots. You know that comes from the top. You know how to find the vertical asymptote because you know that comes from the bottom. You know how to find the y-intercept because that's just plugging in a 0 for x. But this end behavior, in my opinion, this is where we're going left. All right, and we got a test Friday. So let's talk about this again. So we can all look at that yellow paper. I'm going to explain it again. When I say balance, I'm talking about the exponent. Balance means you have the same exponent. That's what that means. Same exponent top and bottom. So for example, if I had, I'm going to put an example. Where can I put it? So if I had y equals 3x plus 2 over x minus 8. You see how they both have an exponent of 1. See, it has a 1 here and a 1 here. Because it's the same exponent, I would divide my leading coefficients, which in this example would be a 3 and a 1. So I would have to divide these two numbers, and I would get y equals 1. I'm sorry, not y equals 1. 3 divided by 1 is what? 3. So I would get y equals 3. So when I say balance, I'm talking about the exponent. The exponent is the same. You divide the number in front. Okay. Top heavy means you have a higher exponent in the numerator. So a higher exponent on top. When this happens, the end behavior is a slant. So it's no longer straight. Everybody look at me. It's not going to be a straight. It's going to slant. And anytime you have a slant, you need to have a slope and a y-intercept, which is why we have to do synthetic division. And that's what we talked about yesterday. So we would have to do synthetic division. So for example, if we had y equals, and I'm just going to make something up, 2x squared plus 5x minus 1 over x plus 3. Let's say that was it. So if we had a situation like this is the notes you probably want to take just to make sure you're understanding, because again, we're finishing up the notes today, going over homework tomorrow, study guide Thursday, taking a test Friday. All right, so for example like this, because I have a second degree upstairs and the third degree downstairs, I would have to do synthetic division. I would figure out what this number is by setting it equal to 0. What do I get when I set this equal to 0? Negative 3. So that's the number that would go outside. And then my A, B, and C, and you really just need A and B, but I'm going to list all of them, that would go across the top. You would bring down the first number, multiply, you get negative 6, add, you would get negative 1. And I'm going to stop there because that's the only two numbers you need. The last number will not be 0. We don't care about the last number. We only want the first two numbers. The first number is the slope of your slant. The second number is the y-intercept of your slant. So your equation would be y equals 2x minus 1. That's what you would have to graph because that would be the end behavior of this function. The last one, which we will talk about today, is, well, what if it's higher in the bottom? So what if you have a higher power in the bottom? I'm just going to say EXP bottom. That's easy. So if I were to take this one that I just wrote for my example, if I were to switch that and make it x plus 3 at the top, and then my 2x squared plus 5x minus 1 at the bottom. If I were to do that, that's really easy. Anytime it's bottom heavy, it's automatically y equals 0. That is your end behavior. So bottom heavy, we don't have to do synthetic division. You don't have to divide anything. It's just y equals 0. It's the x-axis. Those are your three end behaviors. Okay? So now that we have, I wanted to talk about that again. Let's finish out our notes. Our last examples, we're not going to graph. We're just going to list the main characteristics of the functions, and then we will be finished with chapter 4. Yes?
How come we call it in behavior and we don't just call it a horizontal or slant?
So, because that's really, because if you think about it, when you have a graph, see, I'm talking about what is it doing on the ends. So this would be the ends. So are my ends going to go straight? And if they're going straight, where are they going straight at? At what y value? Or are my ends at a slant? So the ends are the left and right arrows. The furthest to the left, the furthest to the right. That's the end of the graph. Good question. All right, y'all, let's finish this out. So let me find the example. I got to go back through all the things. Okay, here we go. Example 13. Now, this is the first example of a special case. And this is where students get confused. A special case is when it's not a single fraction. Okay? When we see that, because we don't just have this. I put this little -2 on the outside. This little -2 makes it special. That means that my horizontal asymptote, I'm going to have to do that different. And I'm going to have to do my x-intercepts different. Okay, so your vertical asymptote, if you look at your yellow sheet, that's always going to be your denominator. That does not change. So I'm going to use this to find my vertical asymptote. Set that equal to 0. This should be written as an equation. So if you were to just say 3, I'm only going to give you half the points. So instead of just 3, what should you write for the vertical asymptote? X equals 3. And I'm picky about that. This one, is this one top heavy, bottom heavy, or balanced? Balanced, because we have a first degree upstairs and a first degree downstairs. Because it's balanced, we don't have a slope. We don't have a slant. I'm sorry, we don't have a slant. It's not a slant because you can't have both of these. Everybody look at the screen. You can't have a slant and a horizontal. One of those is not going to be. Okay, so because this one is balanced, it is no slant. If it was top heavy, we would have a slant. All right, so now let's talk about the horizontal asymptote. So when we find our horizontal asymptote, that's the first thing that's affected by that -2. We're going to start off by dividing my leading coefficients, which would be 1 divided by 1. So for my horizontal asymptotes, I have what y equals 1 divided by 1. But now I have to include this -2. So my horizontal asymptote is not just y equals 1 divided by 1. It's y equals 1 divided by 1 minus 2. So what would that be? Y equals what? -1. Not 3. 1 minus 2 is -1. So that would be my horizontal. X-intercept, this is also going to be affected. Okay, whenever you have a special case, we have to do it differently. We can't just look at the numerator. We have to make an equation and solve it. So for my x-intercept, I'm going to make an equation. I'm going to do it off to the side because I don't have space. So for my x-intercept, 0 equals x over x minus 3. So I need to set y equal to 0 and solve this. Because it's a special case, I can't just look at the top and say, is that 0? It's not. So how would I solve this equation? What would be your first step? Add the 2. So 2 equals x over x minus 3. And then I usually make it a proportion because my personal opinion is most students do better when they see a fraction on both sides. So we're going to cross multiply. We're going to multiply this. And we're going to multiply this and solve it. So that would be 2 times x minus 3 equals x. Go ahead and solve that. Distribute the 2 and solve that for x. So who got 6? So how would you write that as an ordered pair? 6, 0. So that would be your x-intercept. And then your y-intercept, we do that the same way. When we're trying to find our y-intercept, we're going to substitute a 0 in for x. So it would be y equals, and then I'm just going to write this out. What do you think you get here? Go ahead and see what you get. I heard you. Yeah, you're right. I don't want to go too fast because, you know, some of us are a little faster. Got to slow down a little bit. Quiz was good for this class, but it was a couple people in here who did not do so well. I think the thing is we have some really, really high scores that brings up our average, but there was also some Fs that we need to make sure we don't get again on Friday. Okay. What do you all get when you type that in your calculator? Lauren, what you get? Oh, we not listening. Who got it? Who did it? Anybody over here got it for me? -2. I would agree. So you get y equals -2. And as an ordered pair, that would be 0, -2. All right, any questions about how we did that and why it is a special case? We're not going to ask you to graph a special case, but you still have to identify the characteristics. All right, let's flip it over. Let's do these last 3. Anytime you see something that can be factored, you need to factor it. So I want everybody to factor your denominator. This is a single fraction, so it is not going to have a special case. So you need 2 numbers that multiply to be a -2 and add to -1. This is our first time doing one that's bottom heavy. So what would be my 2 numbers that multiply to be -2 and add to -1? What'd you say, Marcus? -2 and 1. Who agrees with Marcus that that would be my numbers? All right. Vertical asymptotes always come from the bottom. So we have 2 vertical asymptotes. My first vertical asymptote would be at x equals +2. Your second one is at x equals -1. This is bottom heavy. So whenever it's bottom heavy, it's automatically y equals 0 for your horizontal asymptote. It's not top heavy, so we don't have a slant. X-intercept comes from the numerator. When I set my numerator equal to 0, I just get x equals 0. So my x-intercept would be at 0, 0. And if you plug in a 0 for all of your x's, if you put a 0 here, here, and here, you get 0 for your y-intercept also. And that is it. Any questions? Again, if something can factor, you always factor it first. Yes, Daniel?
So, vertical asymptote is the denominator, and horizontal is the...
In behavior, yep. You got to look to see if it's top heavy, bottom heavy, or balanced. But the vertical asymptote will always come from your denominator. This is bottom heavy, so it had 2 vertical asymptotes.
Horizontal is top heavy.
No, is it higher at the top or higher at the bottom? My exponent. So do you see how this is x to the first? We have a 1 here, and we have a 2 at the bottom. What's higher, 1 or 2? And where is that 2, at the top or the bottom? So it's bottom heavy. And if you look at the yellow paper, anytime it's bottom heavy, the horizontal asymptote is y equals 0. You don't have to do any division or anything. All right, next. We got another special case, y'all. So remember, the special case affects these two. It affects your x-intercept and your horizontal asymptote. So your vertical asymptote, set this equal to 0. You got x equals 1. This one does not have a slant because it's balanced. So your horizontal asymptote, I'm going to write this over here, which is your end behavior. It's going to be y equals, and then I have to take that 2 divided by 1 and then add the 4. We cannot forget that 4. So I'm taking the 2, I'm taking this number divided by this number, and then I have to add 4. So what is 2 divided by 1 plus 4? So y equals 6. Your x-intercept, set it equal to 0 and solve it. 0 equals 2x over x minus 1 plus 4. All right, let's go ahead and subtract the 4 from both sides. It's optional, you don't have to, but I'm going to make this a fraction. Everybody go ahead and solve it. I'm going to freeze my screen and then I'll show you my work in a second. So try to solve this for x and see what you get. All right, I got a fraction. So if you got a fraction, don't think you're wrong. I got a fraction too. Don't forget to reduce it because it can reduce. All right, raise your hand if you agree with my answer. Who got 2/3? All right, you can look at my work if you did not get that. We want to start by distributing the -4. So it will be -4x plus 4 because a negative times a negative is positive. And then the next thing I did was I added the 4x. I didn't write that, but I added 4x to both sides. So I got 4 equals 6x, divide both sides by 6. So I have 4 over 6, which reduces to 2 over 3. All right, now you want to find your y-intercept. Go ahead and do that. Again, you need to study that yellow paper, but when you're finding your y-intercept, you substitute in a 0 for x. And then you write that as a ordered pair. Go ahead and figure out what you would get when you type that in your calculator. 2 times 0 divided by 0 minus 1 plus 4. So this is the side where I did my x-intercept, and now I'm doing my y-intercept over here. So who got 4? Yep. So then I would write that as an ordered pair, and it would be 0, 4. Any questions? All right, last one, and then we're done. Go ahead and factor. If something can factor, factor it. And I think this one has an A value of 2. Yeah, it does. So you have to make a box. You can't do a shortcut. So we're going to have 2 vertical asymptotes, and one of them will be a fraction. Two numbers that multiply to 4. Oh, wait, is this one factorable?
No. That's a
Is that what you're just saying? So I think this one had a typo too. If this was -4, would that work?
Yeah.
All right, let's change that to a -2. I gotta try to remember
A
to,
value or the C value?
hold on, let me see. You got two numbers that would multiply to be +4 and add to -3?
Yes.
What's your numbers? I wanna know.
Might be wrong, 1 and -2.
Yeah, no, that ain't gonna work.
1 to -2, that will multiply to -2.
Yeah. All right, so can you all do me a favor? Can you all change this from a +2 to a -2? So we can factor it. So make this a -2. And now go ahead and factor it. Who agrees with my factors? 2x plus 1 and x minus 2. Who got that? Okay. So we got two vertical asymptotes. We got to set both of these equal to 0. So we have two equations now. So if you take the 2x plus 1, you would get x equals -1/2. That's your first vertical asymptote. And your second one is at x equals 2. Because this is bottom heavy, what is my horizontal asymptote going to be automatically? Y equals 0. Do we have a slant? No. Your x-intercept comes from the numerator. So I'm going to take my numerator, which is this time is x plus 2. So let me do this off to the side. Hold on, let me change colors. So my x-intercept comes from the numerator. Take that x plus 2. Take the x plus 2, set that equal to 0. Write your answer as an ordered pair. You should get -2, 0. Who got -2, 0? And then lastly, you have your y-intercept. So to find your y-intercept, you have to plug in a 0 for all of your x's, which you probably, I don't know, I'm going to do this the long way, but truly you should probably just be able to look at it and know. But it's okay if you need to use your calculator. So this will be my y-intercept. This is what you need to know. You got to plug in that 0 for your x. And you're going to write that as an ordered pair also. Oh, wait, let me put my parentheses. So what we get? -2? Who got -2? I ain't getting -2. I got -1. Yeah, I got -1. So does anyone so this is what I do, okay? You can do this the long way, but we know that anytime you multiply by 0, it's going to cancel, right? So I know this is going to go away, this is going to go away, and this is going to go away. The only thing I have left is +2 divided by -2, which is -1. So that would be my y-intercept. All right, we have finished chapter 4. Just a reminder, homework 15 is due tomorrow. You should already have 1, 2, and 3 done. Now you can do 4 and 5. If you want to, we'll go over it tomorrow. And then if you finish homework 15 already, start on your study guide. The answer key has been posted.